everyone? Artish and Finesse with you on Wednesday night. The Penguins just fell in overtime to Columbus 4-3. Pretty devastating victory, Finesse. I was just watching the Roots sports telecast. You've never seen Paul Steigerwald look so absolutely like someone just shot his dog. Jay Caulfield so upset, just beside himself. I mean, my trainer, Jerry, texted me, if you need any quotes for your blog, I'm here. Everyone's just falling apart tonight.
I think we have to keep a couple of things separate. I'm not going to melt down about tonight. I'm very upset about the outcome, and I think it's an ominous sign for the remainder of the playoffs. But the focus still has to be on winning this series, and it's still a very winnable series. And that can be the case, while at the same time it's true that the Pens were wildly outplayed for a big portion of the game. And it's also true that Fleury completely choked the game away at the end of regulation and overtime. So I want to talk about all those things, but with the focus that the goal is still to win the series here. And I think it's still a very winnable series. The Cup may be out of question with Fleury playing like this. But I don't know, man. It's a bummer loss, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those games where you just feel so bad for the guy. I mean, he seems like a nice enough guy. He played great for 59 minutes and 40 seconds. He played great. He was, I was tweeting all game how heroic the performance was. He really kept us in it. I mean, the Penguins, it's just a shame that this is now going to all be about him, because the Penguins were essentially killing a penalty for the last half of that game. They were just so soft on the puck, and I think Columbus had the puck the entire time. He kept us in it, and this just doesn't happen to anybody but Marc-Andre Fleury.
Right.
What you saw happen at the end of the game.
And he did keep the Pens in the game, but that's not enough. You have to finish the game if you're the goalie.
Oh, absolutely.
It's unfair because there are other guys on the team who aren't living up to their standard either. But that's what the goalie has to do. The goalie has a bigger burden than everybody else. When the goalie screws up, it's in the net, and he screwed up. He cost the team the game. The goal at the end of regulation was embarrassing. If you're going to leave the net, stop the puck. If you're not going to stop the puck, don't leave the net. And then the one in overtime was like really an all-time terrible goal. Just really, it was a mental goal. He might as well have just left the net and let it go right in because he had no confidence to stop it.
Horrible. And I am not saying, I'm not trying to deflect any blame from Fleury whatsoever. What I will say is that his total implosion at the end may detract attention from what is equally obvious, and that is that this is just not that good of a team.
Yes.
They're not that good. If you have a 3-0 lead and you're totally overwhelming an opponent with inferior talent in the first period, you lock the game down. And the Penguins were so tentative in the second and third period, so soft. I mean, they couldn't even get the puck out of their zone.
Yeah, I want to credit Columbus because they do have a good forecheck and they have a lot of speed and big bodies. But the way that the Penguins were playing in the second and third was it was embarrassing. I mean, I'm not one to require a certain amount of toughness from teams and talk all like that. I don't care about that stuff. But the Pens were playing as soft as I've seen them play all season, and they've had some really soft moments. I mean, it was as soon as the puck got on somebody's stick, their thinking was, I am scared. I don't want to be the one to screw this up. So what I'm going to do is just flip it up in the air as high as I can, and then if they get it and come back, at least it won't be my fault because I got it out of the zone. And that was the mentality. And so we didn't have the puck for 30 straight minutes. And it was just nobody wanted to make a pass. People weren't taking hits. And Columbus was all over us. And that was it was embarrassing. I thought we were embarrassed in the second and the first 10 minutes of the third.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the numbers for this game, but I think last game somebody either wrote an article or tweeted about how 80% of Crosby's shifts were face-offs started with face-offs in the defensive zone. So the team is basically deploying him as almost exclusively as a defensive player.
Right.
Making it a lot harder for him to generate offense. And the reason for that is when you have a third line of Brandon Sutter, Jason Megna, and Bo Bennett, that is a really weak line, a really soft line. I mean, they have some speed, they have some skill, but in a game like this, they are a real liability. And that's why from the very beginning of the season, we've been questioning how Shiro constructed this roster. And we're seeing now the results of how he approached this. It's a major fail by him.
Yeah.
You can't win consistently in the playoffs with a third line like that. You just can't.
Yeah, and I don't want to use that to take blame away either from Crosby and Malkin. I feel like we're spending the whole podcast like deferring all the different people that need blame for this loss because there's a lot of them. But you're right. Like you can't. The team is just not constructed to be a team that's hard to play against. And you can do some sort of analysis or whatever about is it a good strategy to have two guys take up that much of your cap and all that? And those are legitimate questions, but we just have some weak guys out there. Bo Bennett defensively is terrible. Like he's awful in his own zone. Sutter's not very good. That's well documented on our part. But another lingering Fleury issue, and I use this to transition into some of the questions we got on Twitter because some people sent in a few. Sebastian asks, who's to blame more, Fleury himself or Shiro for not moving him? Like, do you think that when you look back at last offseason when the Pens had evidence of Fleury being really just kind of broken and gave him a vote of confidence rather than moving him, does that now strike you as the wrong move? I mean, I think we both thought it was the wrong move at the time. So I think I might know your answer, but you can take that question.
Well, it's sort of a fantasy world kind of a scenario where you move Fleury because you got to ask the question, who are you plugging into that slot for him? And we'll never know. I don't know who was available or what kind of move could have been made. I think that what's questionable to me and what we have questioned since the very beginning of the season consistently, I don't think our position ever changed, that you can't go into the playoffs without a solid veteran backup for him. And quite honestly, I don't even know if Okun was on the bench tonight or Zakhoff was. I have no idea.
Right.
But you knew, if there's one thing you knew for sure going into these playoffs, is that you couldn't count on Fleury. That there was always a chance that this kind of thing would happen. And I don't know that we have a viable alternative right now.
I mean, the only thing that's predictable about him is how unreliable he is.
Right.
I think the Pens might still win this series, and Fleury could have another game like this. He could blow another game in this series, and the Pens could still win the series. And then he could blow two more in the next series. I wouldn't know. None of that would surprise me.
You gotta wonder what the guy's thinking right now. I mean, he's got to be thinking, if he has an ounce of intelligence, and I don't know if he thinks about these things the way he should, but this is it for him. This is absolutely it for him in Pittsburgh. There is no way that this guy is going to be around next year if this is how he leaves us.
Yeah. And for the record, I think we wanted Shiro to move Fleury last summer, but then we were totally fine with, once they decided to keep him, with Shiro saying that he's their goalie, because you can't undermine a guy that you're going to keep on the team. So we've talked about this a bunch. I don't want to get too into it, but if you're going to keep him, then you say you're confident in him, because you don't keep him and say, we have no confidence in this guy. That wouldn't make sense, to throw your own player under the bus. If you're going to throw him under the bus, throw him under the bus to like the Calgary Flames or something and get a second-round pick back,
Yeah, only the Washington Capitals would, keep goalies on their roster and continually undermine them.
That's right.
It's not an intelligent way to go about your business.
let's see. Do you start Fleury? And this, I'll take this from David, who asks, how can Bilesman have any confidence in Fleury doesn't go into full meltdown now? But how can he have any confidence in Zatkoff? So do you start Zatkoff next game? Do you start Fleury? And what does Bilesman do?
I think I said this on the last podcast. You live and die with Fleury at this point. I don't think Jeff Zatkoff is a feasible alternative at this point. I really don't.
Not even with the locker room leadership qualities that he brings?
He's got great leadership. I'd have him in the locker room. I'd keep him in the locker room, and I'd have him talk to the boys. But I don't think I would start him for Game 5. That just is pure panic right there. Pure panic move. And
I don't think it's panic, though. I mean, I think you have a goalie who is the definition of panic. Fleury is one big piece of panic when he's out there.
Yeah. Look, it would be different if Vokun was on the bench. I don't know what Vokun's status is, but it's just a weird situation. The guy hasn't played all year. I don't know that you can, put him in cold in Game 5 of the playoff round.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. I just don't know that I would play Jeff Zatkoff. I just wouldn't do it. I'm not going to deviate from what I thought all year, and that is the Penguins needed to bring in a veteran backup. If Vokun wasn't going to be, guaranteed to be able to play these playoffs, that's what they should have done. And I understand that as the season went on and we had more and more holes that we needed to fill, backup goalie became less of a priority. But I don't think we ever wavered in thinking it would really be a good idea to have some insurance for Marc-Andre Fleury.
So
guess what?
If Fleury right now was injured, and Zatkoff had to come in, would you have more or less confidence in the Pens' ability to win the Cup or win this series?
I would have no confidence in the Pens' ability to win the Cup with Jeff Zatkoff. It would be a very different situation if Fleury was injured and we had no choice. Then that wouldn't be panic. That would be necessity. But now, with Fleury healthy and actually playing really well for the most part until he completely melted down, it's just a panic move. It's saying this guy's completely lost it. We have no confidence in him.
I don't think that's
he has
panic.
No confidence.
I guess I'm not sure I disagree with your conclusion of starting him in Game 5, but I don't think that putting in Zatkoff would be panicking. Because Fleury's the problem. Fleury's the reason they lost this game. And taking that reason out, I don't think is a panic move. I don't think he's reliable enough to say, he'll bounce back in Game 5 and have a great game. Maybe he will. Or maybe Columbus will score 3 goals in the first 10 minutes. I have no idea what's going to happen in Game 5.
He's unreliable, but I'll quibble with that a little bit. I'm going to make a little bit of a distinction, and you may think it's a distinction without a difference. I would say Fleury's the reason that Columbus scored their 3rd and 4th goals. But the reason we lost that game is a lot deeper than Fleury. It's because after going up 3-0 in the first period, we demonstrated, and I've coined a new term here, it's soft shell ability. We went into a shell, and it was a soft shell.
Right. We became so easy to play against later in the game. Although the last 10 minutes of the third, until the screw up at the end, I thought the Pens were actually pretty good. We finally were keeping the puck, getting it in the zone with possession, and cycling a little bit.
Yeah.
But like I said, these guys are just flipping the puck to nobody in particular because they don't want to screw up. And I don't watch game tape. I'm not going to go back and ever watch this game. I'll never watch the highlights from this game. But I bet if I did, I could pinpoint dozens and dozens of times when the wingers were so far away from the defenseman that the defensemen were forced to try to pass it through a Columbus player or just had to bank it off the glass just to get it by that player. I don't understand the Pens system because it seems like it makes it too difficult for the defenseman to pass the puck 70 feet through somebody up the boards to a guy standing still at the red line. I don't understand why that's a good strategy.
There's just not enough support. There's not enough support.
No, guys are way too far away from each other.
A real turning point in this game when we were up 3-0. I believe we had a power play, and James Neal took that, or maybe it was 3-1, but James Neal took that offensive zone penalty.
Yeah.
Which
that was after the weird call on Kunitz for diving.
Yeah. After he got absolutely hacked. But James Neal, we can't let this be overlooked. That guy is such a head case. He takes penalties like that virtually every game.
Yeah.
And he seems to show no remorse or acknowledgement that maybe that was a mistake. It's just like he's constantly irritated and he's constantly costing the team.
Right.
I know that he brings a lot to the table and he can be a real force out there, but that was a real turning point. Right. And next thing you know, Brandon Sutter is shooting the puck out of the rink, and that set up that 5-on-3 and cut the game to 1, and you could feel everything turning at that point.
And all of this is interconnected because you could say, well, Neal's just a psycho, and that might be true. You could say Neal is psycho, undisciplined player, and the coaches have done nothing to rein him in or control him. And that would be true too. But then you could also say, well, what are the coaches supposed to do? How can you have any consequences for Neal? We have like one other good winger. So he is insulated from any consequence for his actions because we need him.
That's right. It's like Alex Ovechkin type situation. Are you going to take the C away from Alex Ovechkin because he's not hustling on defense? What are you going to do? Are you going to pull a Dale Hunter and play him 12 minutes a game?
Right.
That doesn't seem like a good strategy either.
Right. So you have to have a team where you can either work around his penalties by killing more penalties, or you have to have a team where you can like put him in a situation where he's not going to take penalties, and maybe that's sitting him on the bench. I don't know. But that's like Fleury being unreliable. We're going to have to just expect James Neal to take a stupid penalty in the next game. It's going to happen. He'll do it next game.
What did you think of the struggling Letang-Scuderi pairing tonight?
I thought Letang was all right. He didn't have his usual glaring problems. Scuderi had one play that made me laugh. It was like puck comes into the middle in front of the Pens net, and there was nobody around him, and he just like shot it right back in the corner as hard as he could. Like just a total panic move. Like no awareness of who's around him or like trying to move the puck to a winger or anything. They were no better or worse than anybody else, I don't think. Did you have a particular problem with them tonight or something?
No, I thought they were all right. Letang had some trouble clearing the puck out of his own zone.
Everybody did. I mean,
multiple times.
They were all terrible.
I just want to read you a tweet here. This is from our friend at Sup Cussy.
Yeah.
He says, my first podcast in a while. Good to hear your voices again. Finesse's stability is inspiring. I agree with that, Sup Cussy.
Yeah, I'm trying to take a little bit longer view here. If you get too worried about one game, these games aren't going to matter if the Pens win the series. Maybe some of the stuff we're seeing is going to rear its head again, and I'm pretty confident it will. But you gotta try to win this series, and I still think it's a very winnable series for us.
I think so too. Let's talk about one positive in my mind, and that's Paul Martin. I think he's been outstanding. I'm not sure how many minutes he played tonight, but
25, I think.
What a player! I mean, where would we be without the Prime Minister?
Yeah, he's been our best defenseman for sure. But it'd be nice if we didn't have to rely on him so much. I mean, he's not the big body type that is necessarily built to play 25, 26, 27 minutes of playoff hockey every single night.
Yeah. I think maybe I owe Brandon Dubinsky an apology, but I would never apologize to Brandon Dubinsky. I really was disrespectful of his ability going into the series, and he's been very, very impressive.
Yeah, he's a solid player. I don't want to give him credit though for the goal at the end of the game. because it just was an empty net.
No, it's not that. It's just he's a presence out there. He's always on the puck. He's tough to play against. I'd love it if he was our third line center.
Like, we're going to see a highlight package before Game 5 of Brandon Dubinsky, and Pierre Maguire is going to talk about that goal as like such a big clutch goal.
Right.
Like, dude, the goalie.
There was no goalie.
There's no goalie in net. Like, I don't know. It's the same thing that happened with Kyle Okposo last year, where he got all this credit, but his goals were the biggest joke goals I've ever seen. So
they're a big, rugged team, Columbus. I'll give them that. They're big and they're rugged.
They're not easy to play against, but the Pens should be up in the series. I mean, even playing as bad as we did, you got to close the game out. You got to win that game when you're up in the last 30 seconds. You got to win that game. Alicia, and I think somebody else might have said this to ask, are Crosby and Malkin going to show up? Feels like there's no desire to compete.
I don't know about that. I mean, I thought Malkin was hungry tonight, at least for the first part of the game, and then he sort of fell into the same mode as everybody else did, sort of a very passive, soft on the puck mode for the latter half of the game. But I think that was a team-wide situation. I think we didn't know how to play with the lead. I mean, it was just not it was not the right approach. But I thought in the first period, Malkin was, really the engine for the team to get us out to that big lead. Crosby, I also thought looked relatively good in the first period. But, I was texting with a friend of ours on Twitter, and he's the one that said that he thinks that Crosby might be hurt. He heard from a source that Crosby might have a pectoral or an upper body, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that's plausible because there's not a lot of zip on his shot. And he seemed to, get smaller as the game went on.
Yeah. I thought they were both pretty bad in the second and third period. And there's sort of a storyline that I thought has been overblown the last couple years that was definitely true tonight and the last few games. This idea that the Pens are a perimeter team. And I thought it was especially apparent on the power play. Like, Crosby and Malkin are so far away from the net on the power play. And when you have two defensemen out there, they're going to be far away from the net too. Like, and maybe the shorthanded goals we gave up in games 1 and 2 are still spooking us a little bit, so everyone's afraid to pack it in a little bit.
Right.
But we got to get closer to the net. And Crosby and Malkin are the biggest culprits of this out of anybody. Like, everyone's first instinct is pass it back to the point man. There was I think Bo Bennett, I don't know if it was overtime or late in the third. I think it was overtime. His one shift in overtime. I don't know. It might have been the third period now that I think of it. But he could have taken the puck and kept it down low or just shot it to the net. But instead, buys time and feeds it back to the point. And I understand that goals come, you get goals from the point too if you have traffic. But, it's okay sometimes to try to skate the puck into the net and put it in the feet and then go and whack away at it. Nobody's doing that. Into the net. Nobody is doing that.
Yeah. When Dustin Penner went to the Capitals at the trade deadline, we were lamenting the fact that that's exactly what we needed, and he was $2 million a year player who they got for what, like a fourth round draft choice? Like, why couldn't we bring in somebody like that? And we're seeing the outcome here of not having guys that have a nose for the net and just want to go and take punishment there. This is the result.
Right, like our third line guys, so even if you think they're better players than I think they are, like Sutter and Bennett, they're not guys that are going to go to the net. We're just not hard to play against.
Not hard to play against.
And I don't want big hits. I just want to be a little bit stronger on the puck.
Yeah.
So
would you take a clean and sober Ryan Malone for $4 million a year right now?
Nah, I think he's too slow.
We need somebody like that.
You still need Pascal Dupuis. We really miss Dupuis.
Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen in Game 5? Bounce back ability?
Yeah, I think we win Game 5. I think the power play will get going a little bit. But I don't know. I mean, it might not matter because if Fleury gives up bad goals, it could end up being totally moot.
Yeah.
Like if Fleury kept us in this game, even though Columbus was outplaying us, and then he blew the game. But he almost blew the last game when we were completely outplaying Columbus because he gave up 2 bad goals early. So you just who knows? I mean, we need everybody to play it well at the same time.
A lot of uncertainty right now, Finesse.
I'm not that confident in Bilesman's ability to adjust either.
There's no reason to really be confident in anybody.
No, I have very little confidence, but I still think we're going to win the series. Maybe I'm naive. I don't know, but I think we're going to win the series and then probably lose in 5 games to the Rangers.
Can we still win this series in 5? Because that was our prediction.
No, we're going to have to go back to Columbus. But look, this happened last year. This happened with the Islanders last year.
Winning this series in 5 is not possible. Is that what you're telling me?
I mean, we'll see. If we win the next 2 games, we'll have to revisit how many games it is.
We're going to have to recalculate. All right. Well, I think that's just about enough for tonight. Saturday night is my grandmother's 93rd birthday, so I'm not going to be able to podcast that.
Wait, I saw this is from 37 minutes ago. Gene Collier retweeted this. I guess from some guy named Bill Crawford. I guess it's with DVE. He said Tanner Glass just tried to go over and comfort Fleury in the locker room and knocked over the stick rack and fell in the laundry bin.
That's pretty good.
That would be like I want a GIF of that. That would be like the GIF of the season, I think.
That's got to be a GIF.
That would sum up the entire season, including Shiro's off season last summer.
Oh. Did you hear what I said? Saturday night's my grandmother's 93rd birthday. What do you think's more important? Am I supposed to watch the Penguin game and say, Grandma, I'll see you for 94?
I think you need Grandma.
Is that what you want?
Why not have Grandma on the podcast? Like, is Grandma going to be up at 10:30 after the game?
Dinner's at 5:30.
Yeah, so I don't understand. Like, what is your 93-year-old grandmother going to be occupying your time at 10:30 after the game?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. Well, I don't know what time I'll probably get home at 8. So we can podcast.
Yeah.
Never mind. Forget I said anything.
Yeah. Maybe she's one of those old ladies who's like stays up till midnight. I don't know.
We'll see how it goes. I'll be in touch.
All right.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Until next time, GTOG.